Have you ever had someone so close to you, someone who felt like family, just ripped out of your life by the one person who's supposed to protect you? I'm talking about a bond so deep it shaped who you are, only to have it shattered by a single, heartless decision. That's what happened to me when my dad, the man I looked up to for guidance, banned me from seeing my best friend, Jake, leaving me lost, angry, and desperate to hold on to the one friendship that kept me grounded. This isn't just a story about a falling out. It's a raw, emotional roller coaster of loyalty, rebellion, and the ache of losing a piece of yourself. Stick with me as I dive into the pain of being torn from my brother in arms, the memories of a friendship that saved me in my darkest moments, and the shocking truth behind why my dad forced us apart. I've been wrestling with this hurt for years, and now I'm at a breaking point, needing your help to figure out if I can rebuild what was broken, or if some scars never fade. Let's unpack this messy, heartbreaking chapter of my life, from the bond one fought for to the strength I had to find when everything fell apart. My name's Ryan, and I'm 28 now, sitting in my small loft apartment in Portland, Oregon, where the gray skies and constant drizzle outside my window match the heaviness I still carry in my chest. This story stretches from 2012 to 2023, starting when I was 17, a restless teenager in a sleepy suburb of Columbus, Ohio, trying to figure out who I was while clinging to the one person who truly got me. The heart of this tale is the gut-wrenching moment when my dad, Mark, forbade me from seeing Jake, my best friend since middle school, a guy who was more like a brother than anyone related by blood. The emotional conflict tearing me apart is the clash between my fierce loyalty to Jake, who stood by me through thick and thin, and the suffocating guilt and fear of defying my dad, a man whose approval I craved even when I hated his rules. The unexpected twist came years later, in 2019, when I discovered Dad's ban wasn't just overprotectiveness. It was tied to a secret grudge against Jake's family, rooted in a business deal gone wrong that I never even knew about. This all unfolds in Columbus, Ohio, from 2012 to 2018, and later in Portland, Oregon, from 2019 to 2023, a journey of loss, rebellion, and a desperate search for closure. I grew up in Columbus, in a quiet neighborhood called Clintonville, where the streets are lined with old brick houses and towering maples, a place that felt safe but stifling for a kid itching to break free. Back in 2012, I was 17, a junior at Whetstone High School, awkward and unsure of myself, struggling with grades and the pressure of Dad's expectations to man up and follow his footsteps into construction. My escape was Jake, a lanky, sarcastic kid with a mop of brown hair, who I'd met in 6th grade during a dodgeball game when he took a hit for me. We were inseparable, spending afternoons biking along the Olentangy River Trail, the wind whipping past us as we laughed about dumb stuff, or sneaking into empty lots to sketch graffiti ideas on scraps of paper, dreaming of leaving our mark on the world. Jake's house, a cluttered split level a few blocks from mine, was my second home, his mom always leaving out snacks while we played video games in his basement, the hum of an old TV filling the silence of my own lonely house. Dad was a different story, a gruff, no-nonsense guy who'd worked his way up from nothing to own a small contracting business, his hands always rough from labor, his temper short from stress. I'd watch him come home to our tidy ranch-style house, the smell of sawdust clinging to his flannel, barking orders about chores or my future, while I shrank under the weight of never being enough. He didn't get why I needed Jake, didn't see how those late-night talks on Jake's porch, staring at the flickering streetlights, were sometimes the only thing keeping me from spiraling when school or home felt like too much. I'd walk home after hanging out, the quiet of Clintonville's sidewalks giving me space to breathe, not knowing that in the spring of 2013, when I was still 17, everything would come crashing down. It happened on a chilly April evening, the kind where the air still bites even though the grass is starting to green. I'd just gotten back from Jake's, my sneakers muddy from messing around at Highbanks Metro Park, when Dad called me into the living room, his face hard as stone, the TV muted behind him. I stood there, heart pounding for no reason I could name, as he laid down the law. No more Jake, no more hanging out, no contact, period. My stomach dropped, the room tilting as I tried to process it, his voice cold as he said Jake was a bad influence, though he wouldn't explain why, just that I had to obey or face consequences. I remember staring at the worn carpet, the hum of the fridge in the kitchen the only sound, feeling like I'd been punched, unable to argue because Dad's word was final in our house. That night, lying in my bed with the streetlight casting shadows through my blinds, I felt a rage I'd never known, mixed with a hollow ache, wondering how I'd survive without the one person who made me feel seen. Through the rest of 2013, still 17, I was a wreck, sneaking texts to Jake when I could, but Dad checked my phone, grounded me for weeks when he caught me, his disappointment heavier than any punishment. I'd sit in my room, the walls plastered with band posters, staring at an old photo of me and Jake at the Columbus Zoo, grinning like idiots in front of the polar bear exhibit, and I'd feel this suffocating loneliness, like half of me was missing. School was torture, seeing Jake in the halls but keeping my distance, his confused, hurt looks cutting deeper than Dad's rules, while I walked the Olentangy Trail alone now, the river's murmur mocking my isolation. I started resenting Dad more every day, watching him grill steaks in the backyard like nothing was wrong, wondering why he'd taken this from me, if he even cared about the pain I was drowning in. By 2014, I was 18, a senior, counting down to graduation, but the band stayed firm, Dad's watchful, I never letting up, even as I worked part-time at a local hardware store to save for college. I'd stock shelves, the smell of paint and lumber reminding me of Dad's world, feeling trapped between wanting his approval and hating his control, every clink of tools a reminder of Jake's absence. I drive past his street on my way home, the familiar houses taunting me, wondering if he hated me for disappearing or if he'd moved on, while memories of us sneaking into Ohio State football games, cheering from the cheap seats, played on loop in my head. I started pulling away from Dad emotionally, barely speaking at dinner, the clatter of forks louder than our conversations, questioning if I'd ever forgive him or if this rift would just grow wider. Graduation came in June 2014, and I was still 18, standing in my cap and gown at Whetstones Field, scanning the crowd for Dad's proud face, but also aching for Jake to be there, knowing he wasn't. I moved out that fall for community college in Columbus, renting a cheap room near campus, the city's bustle a stark contrast to Clintonville's quiet, but freedom didn't erase the hurt. I'd walk through Goodale Park, the skyline in the distance, wrestling with whether to reach out to Jake now that Dad couldn't stop me, but fear held me back. Fear of rejection, of explaining why I'd ghosted him. I'd sit in dive bars with new friends, the neon lights flickering, but no one filled the void Jake left, and every laugh felt hollow, tainted by guilt for not fighting harder, wondering if Dad's rules had broken something in me I couldn't fix. Through 2015 and 2016, I was 19 and 20, grinding through college classes and odd jobs, moving further from Dad's grip, but not from the weight of his decision. I'd visit home for holidays, the familiar creak of our porch swing a bittersweet memory, but conversations with Dad stayed surface level, his gruff, how's school, questions dodging the elephant in the room. I started seeing Columbus differently, the Scioto River's gleam less magical without Jake to share dumb ideas with, and I'd linger at old hangouts like the Short North's coffee shops, half hoping to bump into him, half dreading it. Memories of us building a rickety treehouse in his backyard at 14, splinters and all, haunted me, and I'd wonder if he remembered too, or if I was just a forgotten chapter, while resentment toward Dad simmered, a quiet fire I didn't know how to douse. By 2017, I was 21, finishing up college, feeling more like an adult, but still carrying teenage wounds, when I finally saw Jake at a mutual friend's party in German Village, the cobblestone streets outside lit by string lights. He looked different, taller, quieter, and I froze by the snack table, heart racing, wanting to explain everything but choking on years of silence, leaving with just a nod between us. Driving home through Columbus's late-night traffic, the radio low, I felt a fresh wave of loss, realizing how much time we'd lost, blaming Dad for the awkwardness, the distance, wondering if I'd waited too long to fight back. I started having nightmares, reliving that April night Dad laid down the ban, waking up sweaty in my tiny apartment, questioning if I'd let his control define me, or if I still had a chance to reclaim what mattered. The twist hit in early 2019, when I was 23, after I'd moved to Portland, Oregon, for a graphic design job, seeking a fresh start in a city of rain and rugged beauty, far from Columbus's ghosts. Dad called one rainy evening, his voice softer than usual over the crackle of bad reception, and after years of dodging, he finally spilled the truth. The ban wasn't about Jake being a bad influence. It was about a failed business deal with Jake's dad from a decade ago, a contract dispute that cost Dad thousands and left him bitter, projecting that grudge onto us kids. I sat on my couch, the patter of rain on my window drowning out my thoughts, stunned as anger flared. How could he punish me for something I had no part in, something he never even told me about? It reframed every fight, every lonely night, leaving me reeling, wondering if I hated him more for the ban or the secrecy, or if I pitted him for letting old wounds dictate my life. Through 2019 and 2020, I was 23 and 24, settling into Portland, the city's quirky vibe, food trucks, indie bookstores, the looming Mount Hood, offering distraction but not peace. I'd hike in Forest Park, the damp trails a place to think, processing Dad's confession, feeling betrayed all over again, but also seeing his flaws clearer, a man stuck in his own pain. I tracked Jake down on social media, seeing he was still in Columbus, working as a mechanic, and I'd stare at my phone in my loft, the Willamette River glinting outside, debating a message but paralyzed by what to say after so long. Memories of us at 15, sneaking beers behind a Kroger, laughing until we cried, clashed with the silence between us now, and I wondered if Dad's grudge had cost me more than a friend. It cost me family, leaving me torn between reaching out and fearing another rejection. By 2021, I was 25, building a life in Portland, freelancing and exploring the Columbia River Gorge on weekends. The waterfalls a stark beauty against my inner turmoil, but Jake's absence lingered like a shadow. I'd visit Powell's books, losing myself in stacks of novels, thinking about Dad's reasoning, how his pride had warped into control, wondering if I'd inherited that stubbornness, too scared to bridge the gap with Jake. I started calling Dad more, testing the waters, his voice less harsh over time, but I couldn't bring myself to forgive fully, not when I'd walk past Portland street murals, vibrant like the graffiti we'd planned, and feel Jake's ghost beside me. I questioned if I was punishing Dad by holding this grudge, or if letting go meant betraying my own hurt, a cycle I couldn't break. Through 2022, I was 26 and 27, feeling more rooted in Portland, my apartment filled with thrift store art, but personal closure stayed out of reach. I'd take long drives to the Oregon coast, the Pacific's endless gray matching my mood, replaying Dad's ban, his confession, wondering if I'd been too passive as a teen, or if fighting back then would have changed anything. I finally sent Jake a message in late 2022, a simple "Hey, it's been a while," sent from a cafe on Hawthorne Boulevard, the clink of coffee cups around me, heart pounding as I waited for a reply that came days later, a cautious, "Hey, man, didn't expect this." We texted sporadically, awkward but a start, and I'd sit by the riverfront, the city's bridges arching overhead, feeling a flicker of hope, but also dread, wondering if we could rebuild, or if too much had eroded. Reflecting on this in early 2023, I was 27 turning 28, spending quiet nights in my loft, the hum of Portland's nightlife faint outside, thinking about how Dad's decision had shaped me, forced me to grow through pain, but also left me guarded. I'd recall Columbus summers, me and Jake racing bikes down deserted streets, the freedom of youth now a distant ache, wondering if Dad ever regretted his choice, or if he still saw it as protecting me. I'd walk through the Saturday market, the smell of fresh crepes and sound of buskers grounding me, questioning if I'd let his control linger too long in my head, or if I'd finally started breaking free by reaching out to Jake. The city's rainy charm, the way fog clung to the hills, mirrored my uncertainty, as I asked myself if I could forgive Dad without an apology, or if some hurt stayed raw. By mid-2023, I'm 28, and my life feels steadier. Design projects keeping me busy, friends in Portland filling some voids, weekend hikes in the Cascades giving me clarity, but the past still tugs at me. Jake and I have met up once, a tense but emotional reunion when he visited Oregon for a car show, sitting at a dive bar on Division Street, the neon buzz around us, catching up on lost years but not diving into the why of our split. I've talked to Dad more, too, sensing his regret in small ways, like when he mailed me an old photo of us at a Buckeyes game. No note, just the picture, and I'd stare at it in my kitchen, the rain streaking my window, wondering if it's his way of saying sorry. But trust feels fragile, with both of them, like I'm walking a tightrope between rebuilding and protecting myself from more pain. The emotional weight of this unresolved mess hangs over me, even as Portland's vibrant weirdness, its punk shows, its hidden speakeasies, keeps me moving forward. I'd spend evenings at the International Rose Test Garden, the city sprawling below, thinking about how Dad's band stole more than a friendship. It stole my sense of security, my belief that family always had my back, leaving me wary in ways I hate. I started avoiding deep talks with Dad on calls, keeping things light, unable to face the full weight of what he did, though every dodged topic made me wonder if I'm stalling healing or just guarding my heart. I'd linger at the waterfront during sunset, the river's calm a contrast to my storm, asking if I've been too slow to reconnect with Jake, or if rushing risks reopening old wounds. Reflecting on my past became a constant through late 2023, especially on quiet nights when I'd sit with a sketchbook, doodling like Jake and I used to, thinking about the dad who'd once taught me to fish at Alum Creek, now shadowed by years of control. I'd recall the time we rebuilt a shed together, his rare laughter echoing, a memory now tainted by his secrecy, wondering if he feels the distance, or if he's too proud to admit it. I thought about Jake's loyalty, how he'd stuck by me through my worst teenage meltdowns, now warped by time, questioning if I'd failed him by not fighting sooner, or if I'd been too young to know how. Portland's endless drizzle, the way it softens the city's edges, challenged me to decide if I could fully let go of this pain, or if some fractures just stay. Now, as I sit here in my Portland loft, the Oregon night settling in with the distant sound of rain and the faint glow of the city outside, I'm still wrestling with where to go from here. My life feels like it's on a decent track, with work I love and a city that's become home, but there's an ache where my unscarred bonds with Dad and Jake should be, a fracture I don't know how to mend completely. There are moments when I think about flying back to Columbus, sitting down with Dad for a real, no-holds-barred talk, maybe over beers at our old favorite diner, seeing if we can finally lay this to rest. Then there's Jake, who I want to call up for a longer catch-up, maybe plan a trip together like old times, but I'm scared of pushing too fast, of finding out we've grown too far apart to reconnect. So, I'm turning to you, my listeners, because I'm at a crossroads and I can't see the right path ahead on my own. Do I dive deeper into rebuilding with Dad, risk the hard conversations, and open myself up to understanding his side, even if it means reliving the hurt? Or do I focus on Jake, prioritize that friendship, and let Dad's past actions fade, even if it means leaving family unresolved? And what about balancing both? Can I even handle mending two broken bonds at once? Or should I pick one and accept that some losses might be permanent? I've spent so long carrying this weight, trying to balance loyalty with self-protection, but I don't know if I've got the strength to fully heal, or if I even should try. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if this story hit close to home, and subscribe if you want to follow how this all plays out. I'm reading every single piece of advice, because right now, I feel like I'm standing on the edge of something huge, and I don't know which way to step. Thanks for listening to my mess, for being here through the highs.